All right, let's go to this conversation now. Motorists can expect yet another increase in the price of fuel in October. The latest unaudited predictions from the Central Energy Fund show that diesel prices will increase for the fourth consecutive month when fuel prices for October are officially adjusted on Wednesday. Diesel is expected to increase by around 160 per litre. Petrol and Illuminating paraffin prices will also increase both for the third consecutive month. Petrol is expected to increase by between 75 cents per litre and 80 cents per litre, depending on the grade, while Illuminating paraffin is expected to rise by more than R1.50 per litre. Acting National Spokesperson and Parliamentary Co-ordinator of COSATU, Matthew Parks, joins us live now. Matthew, thank you so much for your time. This is certainly a big ouch. A lot of South Africans have had to tighten their belts for a while now. I wonder how much more can they take?
We don't think South Africans can take much more, especially workers. Petrol is now likely to be about 27 rand a litre. That's about 2 rand more than minimum wages. This comes against a drop of a similar 2 rand a litre increase last month. We've seen the cost of living really rising. Inflation has peaked at about 7.8% earlier this year. Electricity has gone up by 18.65% this year. It's going to go up by 12% next year. Food inflation, which hits workers the hardest, has really gone out of control. So workers are really struggling. Yet at the same time, you find that government and employers continuously blame workers for the economic crisis. They continually seek to impose wage freezes upon workers in the public and the private sector. We think that government really must do more. We appreciate that government cannot do much about the war in Ukraine and the perennial conflicts in the Middle East, which always push up the international oil price. We're always going to be further exposed as a country because we import oil to these international oil price fluctuations, which then have an impact upon the fuel price. But government can do something about the fuel price tax regime. It currently constitutes about 28% of our fuel price. Last year, government did quite well to reduce the fuel price by about R1.50 a litre, giving some breathing space to workers, to commuters and the economy. Government needs to do again the same thing. And government had promised in 2019 and also 2022 to review the fuel price regime. They haven't done so. We think really it's enough. They need to do something about it. They also need to do something about the road accident fund, which really masquerades as some sort of stockpile these days. It's under a huge crisis. It's got liabilities of about 400 billion rand. The RAF becomes relevant because about 3 rand a litre goes to the RAF. So if you can sort of the RAF, put it under administration, put a sober person in charge of it, it can help to lessen the pressure on the fuel price all the time. But the status quo can't be maintained any longer.
So will that be enough, though, if government can deal with that particular fuel price increase? Is that enough, given the fact that there's a multiplicity of issues that workers are having to deal with right now?
No, it won't be enough, but it can be a start in the right direction. Government also needs to sort of the crisis at Transnet. If we can make sure that Transnet is fully operational, today it transports about half the goods that it transported in 1994. It can help to protect and insulate food from inflation. That's critical to the poor. If government can continue the progress we are beginning to see around Metro Rail in opening up all the commuter railway lines across the urban centres, that can give some breathing space to commuters. Metro Rail is key because it transports about 10 million commuters in our urban centres to work, to school, to university, etc. And it helps to protect them from inflation because it's much cheaper due to subsidies than, of course, taxis or buses and so forth. We do need a broader public conversation around how do we expand and support public transport, including taxis, because that is key to protecting people. We think we also need to see in the medium-term budget statement on the 1st of November Parliament, government adjusting the SRD grant and other social grants for inflation to help cushion the most vulnerable members of society. And of course, to see how can we expand the public employment programs, such as the presidential employment stimulus. But also government's got to grow the economy. But there are some things like these ones that they can do in immediate term to give some relief to the poor.
You mentioned the issue of Transnet. We've seen what's happened in recent days, the resignation of the CEO, the CFO, and I wonder, how does COSATU first respond to this?
I mean, something we had called for. We had endured, 2 years hoping that things would improve at Transnet. We had welcomed the new leadership when they were appointed a few years ago. But the reality is that Transnet today transports half the goods it did in 1994, yet the economy is twice the size. This has a huge impact upon the mining, the manufacturing, and agricultural sectors. We're now potentially going to witness a bloodbath of job losses in the mining industry, with a potential 35,000 mining jobs, especially in the coal industry, being at risk. The mining industry is key to the economy. It's the backbone of South Africa. It's a huge contributor to the fiscus of company taxes, earn a foreign exchange for the economy. Yet it can't get its goods onto trains, and it can't get its goods through our ports. So basically, the chaos of Transnet is suffocating the economy. So we welcome the resignation of the leadership last week Friday, something we had called for. So we're pleased they responded to that. We hope we'll see similar resignations at Transnet Freight Rail, because it's also in a huge crisis, sometimes the most bizarre, unexplainable crisis they are busy with. Government needs to, beyond just appointing acting leadership, needs to move swiftly to appoint new permanent leadership, give support around dealing with corruption, wasteful expenditure, and also the issue of cable theft. But we have to really prioritize intervening at Transnet to turn the economy around.
There's a view, though, Matthew, that says that these particular executives, were set up for failure, given what we heard about Transnet and the State Capture Commission, and they should not be the only ones that are going to be blamed for where Transnet finds itself in. And a lot of people saying that effective oversight needed to also be exercised by the department that is tasked with this particular responsibility. And I wonder how much of that responsibility of where Transnet finds itself in right now, as you say, in the period of 2 years, you were hoping things change, that should also be shouldered by the department.
Yeah, look, they all have to be blamed because it happens under their watch. The reality, of course, is that if you're appointed as a manager of Transnet or Eskom, whichever other SOE, you are paid a salary. You accepted the job. You accepted a very nice, luxurious salary. I think the CEO of Transnet got paid about 8.4 million rand a year. So it's not exactly a poverty wage. It means they took responsibility, so they have to accept responsibility for managing the SOE. But we do agree that with the point you're making, that no matter how talented a CEO you appoint, if you don't give them the full spectrum of support, from Treasury coming on board to help reducing wasteful expenditure, from the law enforcement institutions, whether it's the police or defense force, the SIU, the Hawks, the judiciary, etc., to deal with the issue of criminality, crippling Transnet and so forth, then we're not going to make progress. It really is a society-wide crisis. So it really requires, like with Eskom, a huge comprehensive pack of interventions to assist. If we don't do that, we'll continue to be in this crisis, and we don't think we can sustain the level of chaos at Transnet any longer. We don't think we have even until February. We have to see action by December.
And a lot is going on there. And let's see then what happens. As you say, that stability is needed as a matter of urgency. But thank you so much for your time. That is Acting National Spokesperson and Parliamentary Co-ordinator for COSATU, Matthew Parks.